The time seems just about right, now that things at Elland Road are finally beginning to look up again, that we delve into the intriguing past of one of the UK's most historic and controversial clubs, Leeds United. We intend to focus in this video on the footballing prowess and history of one of English football's finest institutions. So sit back and strap yourselves in for one hell of a rollercoaster ride through the life and times of this awakening Yorkshire giant. Before there was Leeds United, there was Leeds City. Formed in 1904 and elected into the Football League in 1905, the arrival of manager Herbert Chapman improved fortunes at the club, leading to larger attendances at Elland Road. However, financial insecurity and illegal payments to players meant the side was soon to disband. In 1920, Leeds once again rejoined the Football League under the new name Leeds United. Before the Second World War, the side had enjoyed a number of positive seasons in the First Division, before slipping back down to the second tier in the post-war era. After regaining their place in the top flight, they were soon to be relegated once more, where they frequently featured towards the lower half of the table. It is here that we come to one of the most important managers in the club's history. It is almost impossible to think of Leeds without thinking of the one and only Don Revie, the father of Leeds United. He immediately set about the task of rebuilding the club from its lower second division status. One of his main moves was to change the kit colour from the traditional blue and yellow to white in order to imitate the Spanish giants Real Madrid. The players of that Revie era will go down as some of the greatest to ever grace the games in these islands and on this continent. The famous Leeds side of the late 1960s and early 1970s, featuring the likes of Billy Bremner, Peter Lorimer, Eddie Gray and the late Norman Bite-Your-Legs Hunter and Jack Charlton, began to turn Revie's vision into a reality on the pitch. A promotion to the top flight was soon followed by First Division titles, an FA Cup triumph in 1972, a League Cup and many other successes. There were at the time many admirers but just as many critics of the perceived physical nature of their play, as well as a poor disciplinary record and possible gamesmanship. These aspects of their success were mainly responsible for the nickname Dirty Leeds. We are sure you have all seen the film The Damned United, starring Michael Sheen, in which he plays Brian Clough during his infamous, ill-fated 44-day spell at Leeds in the post-Don Revie era. Revie had by this time taken on the role of the manager of the England team, and it was up to Clough, who had had a bright start to his managerial career at Derby County, to reinvigorate the club. However, things did not work out for Mr. Clough. During his time at Derby, he was part of many ferocious and famous encounters with his next employers and was an outspoken critic of the dirty nature of the Leeds side. He was to be sacked just 44 days into his job, and the year after, Leeds would reach a European Cup final, which they would lose to Bayern Munich. Clough moved on to what would be a terrific career in management elsewhere, but perhaps the players he had under his command at Elland Road were so loyal to the father figure that was Don Revie that he never really had a chance of winning them over. The fact that he was often Leeds' biggest critic probably didn't help his cause. After a quiet 1980s, the early 1990s would offer some of the most memorable moments in Leeds fans' minds. The championship winning side of 1991-1992, with Howard Wilkinson at the helm, saw players like Gary Speed, David Batty, Gordon Strachan, Gary McAllister and Eric Cantona playing out of their skins to win the last First Division title. It is a triumph that will live long in the memory and is poignantly remembered with the all-too-tragic recent death of Gary Speed. The title-winning season ensured Leeds would be the final side to lift the old First Division title as the advent of the Premier League approached the following season. The Premier League era has been an eventful one for Leeds United. Most notably in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Leeds were consistently finishing in the top four and competing in both the UEFA Cup and the Champions League. Players such as Ian Hart, Lucas Radebe, Mark Viduka, Dominic Matteo and Alan Smith and many more contributed to a time of great excitement at the club, which culminated in a Champions League semi-final in which they would lose to Valencia in 2001. However, These years also saw the likes of Deportivo La Coruña, AC Milan and Besiktas, amongst other top European sides, fall at the hands of David O'Leary's team. Memorable draws at home to Barcelona and in Milan also occurred, and these were good times to be a Leeds fan. Ever since, however, it has been a painful and difficult journey. Peter Ridsdale's major financial gamble backfired and left the club having to sell its top players, and eventually led to relegation from the Premier League in 2004. This slide continued as relegation to League One soon followed after a couple of nauseating seasons in the Championship, which gave a glimmer of hope under Kevin Blackwell. These were extinguished by Watford in the playoff semi-final in 2006. Leeds would now find themselves in the third tier of English football for the first time ever. After a frustrating few years in that league, often flirting with and then failing with bids for promotion, a 1-0 over Manchester United in the FA Cup in 2010, and then, more importantly, a 2-1 win over Bristol Rovers on the last day of the season, saw Leeds back in the Championship. This season is Leeds' 10th season back in the second tier, and the post-Bates administration point deduction era sees the club on a more solid financial footing, with an incredibly experienced manager at the helm in Marco Bielsa. Bielsa arrived at Leeds with an impressive reputation. He has enjoyed a long managerial career which has seen him take over sides like Athletic Bilbao and Marseille, as well as the national teams of Argentina and Chile. It is with his passion and incredible enthusiasm that has led him to become the inspiration for many modern managers like Mauricio Pochettino and Diego Simeone. Following a last-gasp winner from Pablo Hernandez against Swansea City in mid-July 2020, Leeds are just a couple of games away from promotion back to the top flight. Once they return to the Premier League, one thing is for certain: there will never be a dull day at Leeds United. Thank you very much for listening to a narration of one of our blogs. You can find the link to the blog in the description below. You can also find the link to our book, Football's 50 Most Important Moments. Please follow us on Twitter at TFHBS. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.